Coming up in a newscast tonight, South Korea reports a record-high daily COVID-19 tally again. The government begins enforcing a new coronavirus testing policy centered on rapid testing. The first televised debate between the four frontrunners in South Korea's presidential election is held. This comes just over a month before citizens head to the polls. South Korean women's football team continues to make waves, this time by making the AFC Asian Cup final. Hello and welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let us begin with the top story at this hour. South Korea began enforcing a new COVID policy centered on rapid testing. On Thursday, health officials report a record number of new infections. It's the second straight day of the daily tally exceeding 20,000. Choi Min-jung starts us off.
South Korea reported a new high of 22,907 new COVID-19 cases on Thursday. This is up by more than 2,600 cases from the previous day, while the figure has more than tripled from 2 weeks ago. With Thursday's tally, South Korea's total caseload has surpassed 907,000. The record comes despite fewer tests being carried out over the New Year holiday, as Omicron continues to sweep the country. Authorities are bracing for the number of infections to surge further after the holiday, possibly reaching 100,000 cases a day. Meanwhile, authorities will be announcing new social distancing measures this Friday. This comes as the current measures, which include limits on social gatherings to 6 people and business hours to 9 p.m., are due to end this Sunday. Health authorities have said that it is best to tackle the spread of Omicron without further strengthening social distancing rules. Starting on Thursday, people can get diagnosed and treated for COVID-19 at around 700 hospitals and clinics in their local communities. Through the so-called one-stop system, those with symptoms can visit a nearby designated clinic and get tested for COVID-19, and if they do test positive, the clinic will be in charge of prescribing medication as well as looking after patients being treated at home. To increase the number of patients treated at home, health checks will be reduced to twice a day for those at high risk and once a day for those at low risk. PCR tests at testing centers will only be carried out for those at high risk, like people aged 60 and over, as well as those who have been in close contact with a carrier. Anyone who is not considered high risk but is experiencing fever or respiratory problems can visit a local clinic and get tested for COVID-19 using a rapid antigen test. If the person tests positive, they would then have to take a PCR test. Recent data has shown that only 76% of those with positive results from rapid antigen tests were confirmed with COVID-19 after taking the PCR test. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
The daily virus tally on Jeju nearly tripled. The resort island recorded 640 new cases between January 27th and February 2nd, a huge jump from 236 reported the week before. Numbers have been spiking since the beginning of the Lunar New Year period, with most infections among those in their 20s. Authorities expect the daily tally to jump to 500 soon and has warned the medical system could become overwhelmed if people are not on high alert. During the extended holiday, over 200,000 tourists traveled to Jeju, up over 30% on year. The Beijing Winter Games begins this week, but organizers reported 55 more COVID-19 infections. Among them, 26 cases are athletes and team officials. Half of them were detected on arrival in China, the other 13 from daily PCR tests. 29 cases were from workers and accredited personnel. A total of 287 infections have been recorded since January 23rd. According to the IOC, on Wednesday, at least 11 people have been treated in hospital, but none were in serious conditions. A UN panel approved a year-long sanctions waiver for a South Korean civic group's COVID-19 aid to Pyongyang. It's the first such instance for 2022. Kim Da-mi has the details.
A UN Security Council Committee on North Korea sanctions has given the green light to a sanctions exemption for a South Korean civic group to send 20 thermal imaging cameras to the regime. It's the first sanctions waiver for the North this year. The UN panel announced on its website on Thursday it issued the approval to the Inter-Korean Economic Cooperation Research Center on January 26th. The president of the organization told Arirang News on Thursday that the cameras will be used to check people's temperatures as part of virus prevention efforts. It'll have follow-up consultations with Pyongyang on the details like the time and method of shipment.
With train operations resumed across the North Korea-China border, the cameras will be sent after emergency supplies are shipped. We also need approval from Seoul's Unification Ministry.
With the latest year-long approval, the Chinese-made goods will be supplied to the North's Pyeongan-bukdo province. Under UN Security Council resolutions, thermal imaging cameras are usually prohibited from being brought into the regime. The UN panel had already given the organization approval in July 2020, but the group reapplied for the exemption after the goods were unable to be shipped due to the pandemic-related border shutdown. Kim Dami, Arirang News.
The UNESCO will reportedly meet behind closed doors on Friday to discuss North Korea's latest missile test. A number of countries in Europe condemned the regime's actions, while Seoul's top diplomat discussed the matter with his U.S. and Japanese counterparts. Yoon Jung-min brings the updates.
The United Nations Security Council is set to hold a behind closed doors meeting on Friday afternoon, New York local time, on North Korea's recent missile test. That's according to Russia's TASS news agency, citing diplomatic sources. This follows North Korea's seventh missile launch in January, the longest-range one in about 4 years, an intermediate-range ballistic missile that has the ability to hit the U.S. territory of Guam. Earlier, the U.S., along with the UK and France, had requested the meeting reportedly for Thursday. Separately, the UK, France, and Germany on Wednesday strongly condemned the North's missile tests and urged the regime to comply with UN resolutions. In a joint statement, they called the series of missile tests by Pyongyang provocative actions that undermine peace and security and violate multiple Security Council resolutions. They called on North Korea to accept offers of dialogue by the U.S. and take actions towards the complete, verifiable, and irreversible dismantlement of weapons and missile programs. Chief diplomats of South Korea and the U.S. spoke over the phone on Thursday, expressing strong regrets over North Korea advancing its missile capabilities. Seoul's Foreign Affairs Minister Chung Eui-yong and his U.S. counterpart Antony Blinken reaffirmed their close coordination to bring the North back to the negotiating table as soon as possible, once again urging for diplomacy. And in a separate phone conversation with Japan's Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi, Chung reaffirmed cooperation with Japan on North Korea. Earlier in the week on Tuesday, Blinken also had a phone conversation with Hayashi, during which they condemned North Korea's ballistic missile launches. They reaffirmed their trilateral cooperation with South Korea for the complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
South Korea's National Security Council says calls from the international community for dialogue with Pyongyang are still valid despite the series of missile launches. During a weekly meeting on Thursday, the NSC vowed continued efforts to resume talks for a diplomatic solution and to work closely with related parties to put an end to acts that escalate tensions on the peninsula. The regime has launched missiles on 7 occasions this year. The nation's foreign minister filed a complaint to his Japanese counterpart over Tokyo's push to get a number of controversial mines listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Speaking on the phone today with Yoshimasa Hayashi, Chung Eui-yong expressed deep disappointment over the move. He urged Japan to first fulfill its promise to acknowledge its use of wartime forced labor at industrial sites already designated as World Heritage in 2015. At the Sado mines, at least 1,000 Koreans were subjected to forced labor during World War II under Japan's colonial rule. The ministers also discussed other thorny issues, including the wartime sex slavery and Japan's restrictions of exports of key materials. The 4 main candidates in South Korea's upcoming presidential election held their first televised debate earlier tonight and clashed over state affairs and personal qualifications. Those candidates were Lee Jae-myung of the ruling Democratic Party, Yoon Suk-yeol of the main opposition People Power Party, Shim Sang-jung of the Justice Party, and An Cheol-soo of the People's Party. The first topic of the 2-hour session addressed the nation's housing market, where candidates share their vision to stabilize rising prices. During this topic, a land development scandal surrounding DPE Jae-myung was addressed by 3 candidates. On the second topic of national security, the candidates exchanged views on diplomatic priorities, the U.S. THAAD anti-missile system, and other North Korean policies. More debates are set to take place in the build-up to March 9th presidential election, but no set dates have been fixed. The South Korean women's football team made history by reaching the finals of the AFC Asian Cup for the first time. The Taeguk ladies beat the Philippines 2-0 on Thursday in the semifinals held in India. The goals came from Korea's record appearance maker Cho So-yeon and Son Hwa-yeon in the first half. Korea's previous best was third place in 2003. The finals will be held on Sunday at 8 p.m. local time, and Korea will face the winner of the other semifinals, China or Japan. The squad's performance in India also earned them a spot at the 2023 Women's World Cup in New Zealand. President Moon Jae-in called for lawmakers to swiftly pass the extra budget bill focused on providing emergency support for small businesses hit by the pandemic. According to the top office, it said in a meeting with senior aides that speed is vital. The bill submitted by the government to the National Assembly is worth about $11.8 billion. Most of it is earmarked to provide relief payments worth about $2,500 each to over 3 million merchants who've been seeing a decline in sales because of the distancing rules. It will also be used to secure more hospital beds and other quarantine measures. Data shows online shopping transactions rose to a new all-time high in December. The pandemic has driven more Koreans to order delivery food online. There's also been a recovery in purchases of travel and transport services. Min Soo-kyun helps us look beyond the digits.
The COVID-19 pandemic is spurring more shoppers in South Korea to go online. According to Statistics Korea on Thursday, online shopping transactions in December totaled $15.3 billion, up almost 16% from the previous year. It's by far the highest spending on record. Online shopping has been rising sharply as the pandemic has changed consumers' shopping habits. Data shows that more people are reserving travel and transportation services online. Such online purchases of travel and transportation jumped 114% on year due to the base effect from the fall the previous year. Online shopping for clothes also rose almost 23%, while spending on consumer electronics, including home appliances, surged 14% on year as more people spent time at home. People also ordered more meals and daily necessities online. Most of those purchases were made through mobile phones, which accounted for about 74% of all online shopping in December. The latest report shows that mobile shopping transactions topped $11 billion, up nearly 23% on year. For all of 2021, online shopping transactions amounted to about $160 billion, an increase of 21%. Min Soo-kyun, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, Hyundai and its affiliate Kia reported their best ever January figures in terms of sales in the United States. Combined, they sold almost 94,000 cars in the States last month, up more than 3% on year. Despite the semiconductor shortage, the Korean auto giant outperformed the industry, where the average sales of 5 major American car makers fell about 7% on year. Performance was boosted by eco-friendly models, whose sales tripled from a year earlier to nearly 11,000 units. Also, SUV sales, which rose about 11%. With oil prices near record highs, OPEC members and allies agreed on Wednesday to stick to their original plans to boost output gradually, even as some countries struggle to keep up with the increase. OPEC Plus is going to raise production by 400,000 barrels a day from March. West Texas Intermediate, which is Korea's benchmark, is now under just $90 a barrel for March futures. And Brent crude has crossed that mark for April. OPEC has been resisting pressure from the world's biggest oil consumers, including the U.S. and India, to boost supply more quickly. As tensions escalate near Ukraine, the Biden administration decided to deploy 3,000 additional troops to Eastern Europe. The Pentagon stressed this is to ensure the defense of its NATO allies and insisted they are not going to Ukraine to fight. NATO welcomed the decision, whereas Russia strongly criticized the new deployment. Bae Eun-ji tells us more.
The Biden administration announced Wednesday local time that nearly 3,000 U.S. troops will be deployed in the coming days to NATO countries near Ukraine.
As part of this commitment and to be prepared for a range of contingencies, the United States will soon move additional forces to Romania, Poland, and Germany.
The Pentagon spokesperson said this is to ensure the defense of NATO allies and insisted that the troops are not being sent to fight.
Because it's important that we send a strong signal to Mr. Putin and, frankly, to the world that NATO matters to the United States. It matters to our allies. And we have ironclad Article 5 commitments. An attack on one is an attack on all.
This comes as fears have been rising that Russia might invade Ukraine, as it has amassed thousands of troops along the border. The Pentagon spokesperson said the new deployments include around 2,000 troops from the U.S. to Poland and Germany, and another 1,000 troops currently based in Germany being repositioned to Romania. They will be joining the 4,000 American troops already in Poland and 900 currently in Romania. He also explained the additional deployment is separate from the 8,500 military personnel the Pentagon had placed on heightened alert last week to be deployed to Europe should NATO activate a response force. Whereas the head of NATO welcomed the U.S. decision, Moscow immediately criticized the latest move. Russia's deputy foreign minister called the additional deployment a destructive step that makes it harder to reach a compromise over Ukraine. The Ukrainian ambassador told the UN Security Council that Russian military forces used a drone to attack Ukrainian troops in the eastern Ukrainian region. According to U.S. newspaper The Washington Examiner, the senior diplomat said armed formations of the Russian Federation attacked again last Tuesday and dropped fragmentation grenades from a drone, which he said resulted in severe injuries of 2 Ukrainian service members. Peunji, Arirang News.
Shifting our focus to entertainment news now, we have another Korean hit series on Netflix. All of Us Are Dead debuted last week and went straight to #1 on the streaming service in 58 countries, including Canada, France, and Japan. With 12 episodes, a zombie apocalypse thriller is based on a Korean webtoon in which students at a high school struggle for survival as a virus starts turning them into zombies. Drawing comparisons to the explosively hit Squid Game, it's been getting positive reviews among overseas critics. A writer at The Guardian, for one, called it a world-beating piece of doomy existentialism. Fans of classical music now have the chance to discover what goes on behind the curtain. A concert hall in Seoul is running special tours to give fans a sneak peek backstage. Our culture correspondent Kim Bo-kyung went to have a look.
The backstage of concert venues is usually off limits for the audience. But now, classical music lovers have a chance to see what it looks like. A concert hall in Songpagu district that specializes in classical music is giving people the chance to take a peek backstage. The tour starts from the hallway where posters of previous concerts are hanging, then goes to the performance hall.
This is a concert hall for classical music without a speaker system. Musicians and singers do not use microphones or speakers, so we use some architectural techniques to fill the hall with sound.
It uses the box-in-box technique of having a stage inside 2 sets of walls to cut out any noise or vibrations, while making the walls irregular and bumpy so that they can bounce the sound back to the stage. The tour participants could go up on the stage and look out at how the seating rises up like the sloping terraces of a vineyard.
This is the first time seeing such a vineyard-style stage. I wondered how long the reverberation time would be, whether those far away from the stage could hear well, but there was no problem.
There are detailed explanations of the instruments, including the finest pianos and pipe organs.
If we send the signal from here, the pipe organ injects the wind and the sound comes out.
Coming out from the stage, the tour visits the instrument storage rooms where the temperature and humidity need to be constant. Next on the tour are the rehearsal rooms and dressing rooms.
Ever wondered how your favorite pianist or classical singer gets ready for their performance? This room is where they put on their outfit and makeup before heading out to perform.
The mirror light has the same level of illumination as the stage, and a small piano is ready for performers to practice on. The participants say the tour is a great opportunity to learn more about classical concerts.
I have visited this concert hall several times with the kids to see the performances, and it is great to see instruments up close and get to know how the performers get ready behind the stage.
The tour will run at least once a month for those who have booked in advance. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Staying here in the nation, food delivery is bigger than ever, but so is the fee taken by apps. It's causing some restaurant owners and customers alike to reconsider using the service and the government to announce an investigation. Ji-young tells us more.
Yoo Duk-hyun is one of the many restaurant owners who have decided to no longer provide delivery services through smartphone apps because the commission fees are getting more and more expensive. He plans to deliver the food himself to places nearby or encourage customers to visit the store in person for pickups.
We offer additional perks or complimentary menu items for those customers who visit the store for takeout.
It's not just restaurants, but also customers who have noticed a rise in delivery fees. One of the emerging trends among young people is to order with people who live nearby to save on delivery fees.
When people in apartments or residential areas order food delivery like fried chicken, they look for people who want to order together and from one restaurant, so they only pay the delivery fee once.
One of the reasons behind the rising fees is the competition between the different food delivery apps, all rushing to provide faster delivery services. A latecomer into the market, Coupang Eats by e-commerce giant Coupang, began to offer a service whereby riders carry out just one order at a time rather than multiple orders together. This cuts delivery times right down. After it enjoyed a surge in popularity, other existing players launched similar services, pushing up delivery fees as more riders were needed.
Because riders get more fees for single-order trips, more delivery riders are transferring to apps that offer those services. The company that uses multiple orders per trip are hiking fees to pay more to the riders in order to avoid losing them.
Amid the increasing demand in delivery services due to the surge in COVID-19 case numbers, the government plans to investigate the cost of food delivery services starting this month. 엄지영, Arirang News.
A surge of cold air that took over during the holiday break will continue to hold. Cold wave alerts have been issued for central regions as of 9 p.m. tonight. Places like Paju and Gyeonggi-do province will be extremely cold with lows at minus 12 degrees. Snow falls in the forecast for parts of the southwest. Jeollado province will see heavy snowfall of up to 7 centimeters. Chungcheong-do province and Jeju Island will see 1 to 3 centimeters. In the meantime, for the East Coast, where no snows in the forecast, conditions are very dry. For those in the area, please take precautions against forest fires. For most regions, mornings will be colder than today. Seoul will start off at minus 8 degrees. For the daytime, there will be a slight increase in clouds. Seoul will be staying in the minus territory at minus 1 degree. Gwangju, Daegu, and Gyeongju will reach 4 degrees. On Saturday, readings will plummet to minus 10 degrees in the capital. Temperatures will be on a rising trend after Sunday. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.
Find the ways of Taekwondo within yourself. The mind that honors respect and kindness. The valor that